We're seeing the vice president being criticized by the Trump campaign and other Republicans for not being as out front in terms of interviews, speaking off the cuff, as Donald Trump has been. Again, he's going to be appearing on X tonight, and she has yet to really define her policy. It seems like it might be crunch time here for her.
Well, in one sense, it's crunch time for her because she's starting to take some criticism for not doing that. On the flip side, she has been enjoying this period of time where she is just watching her poll numbers get better. So, yes, at some point she will have to talk to the media. There will be even more scrutiny. She's saying that her policies are coming out this week. There will continue to be pressure on that. But there could be a part of her campaign saying to her, "You're doing really well right now. You continue to grow your base. Let's get through the convention."
Well, it's interesting, Julie, because we're in a world now where Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have something in common. Not actually just the no taxes on tips proposal, but the fact that neither of them are proposing a way to pay for it. On the early edition of Balance of Power, I talked about that with Mark Goldwine from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. And his idea of this no tax on tips idea, here's what he said.
We think that Harris' plan to exempt tips from taxes and raise the minimum wage would cost between $100 and $200 billion. That's real money. And if there's not a plan to pay for it, it's going straight to the credit card.
So Jack Fitzpatrick, another $200 billion worth of deficit spending here. You cover Capitol Hill and appropriations for a living. Another hole in the budget now as we talk about extending the Trump tax cuts. Do either of them have a way to pay for this?
Neither side has proposed a specific pay for. This seems to highlight the fact that in the height of campaign season, if you are talking about tax policy, you want to be talking about tax cuts and tax exemptions, not tax increases, not allowing previous tax cuts to expire and not paying for them with spending cuts. That will get really tricky when they actually have to negotiate a tax package, which is one of the major deadlines they face early in the next presidential administration. So it is notable that they're finally getting into some details of tax proposals. But you certainly see a trend that fiscal conservatives, like the people at the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, are not in charge of the campaigns. The campaigns want to sell voters on tax cuts and tax exemptions, and that is going to make for some very tricky math when they actually have to negotiate a tax bill probably sometime next year.
And of course, it all feeds into policy on the economy. And Julie, it was remarkable as we looked at the polling that has come out in the last 24 hours or so to note the new poll out of the Financial Times done with the Michigan Ross School of Business that finds for the first time ever it is the Democratic candidate, who of course is now Kamala Harris, leading Donald Trump on the issue of trust on the economy just by a single point. But still, that is a 7-point improvement from what the same survey found about Joe Biden back in July. If you're the Trump campaign and you're looking at that, plus the New York Times Siena poll in the blue wall states, what are you thinking?
Well, if you're the Trump campaign, you are likely thinking that there are issues that they need to be going stronger on. They have stuck to the economy in many ways in the past, saying that the Biden administration was not good on the economy, and they've talked about the border. I would think you're going to likely see them pivot to the border even further, continue to talk about the economy because they think that is an issue they've had in the past. If you look at these poll numbers, though, it certainly shows they need to pivot to something because in the past couple of weeks, they have not been able to keep up with the momentum that the Harris campaign is seeing. So if you're sitting in that campaign, you've got to be thinking about discipline and you've got to be thinking about coming up with something that sticks. Kailey and Joe?
Something that sticks, Julie, but how specific does Kamala Harris need to be after telling reporters, as we played for you here, she's going to have a more comprehensive economic agenda this week? We're rolling into Chicago. We're going to be at a convention next week, the big party of the coronation. Does she bog that down with a 30-point plan on the economy? What do we expect here?
I expect to see her come out with a plan. I do not expect it to be 30 points, at least for now. I think she will come out with some specific policies that they will continue to campaign on. But when she sits for an interview and gets more scrutiny, she needs to be ready to back that up with numbers. Joe?
Well, Julie, she may not have sat down for an interview, but we did see the former President Joe Biden sitting down for an interview on CBS. It aired in full this weekend, and it was the first time we've seen him sit down like that since he decided to leave the race last month. And it was interesting that he specifically talked about the idea that his candidacy would be a distraction, talking about the impact it would have, Jack Fitzpatrick, on down ballot races, thinking about the House and the Senate and the balance here. Now that it is Harris on the top of the ticket, and we're seeing polls like we are seeing now, where she seems to be gaining momentum, or at least having substantially more than Joe Biden had. What are Democrats in Congress thinking, or Republicans for that matter, at this time?
Well, first of all, there was pressure from the down ballot candidates on President Biden to step aside. That was a major part of his reasoning. Was you heard from very mainstream leadership aligned Democrats who don't speak out in that way, who clearly wanted someone else at the top of the ticket. It's also notable in the battle for the Senate, which is still clearly leaning Republicans' way just because of the way the map is. After this lull in the campaign schedule for Donald Trump, the first place he went was Montana. And you would think that Montana being a red state might be a box that Republicans could check, but that's a very competitive race with the incumbent Democrat Jon Tester. There may be a little nervousness among Republicans for Montana. There is relief among Democrats as to Kamala Harris's more positive influence for down ballot races. That said, it doesn't reverse the trend of the Senate, which is very, very difficult for Democrats unless they can find ways to win Montana and Ohio. Yeah. West Virginia doesn't look good for them at all. So it's still tricky for Democrats.
Helps when there's a score to settle between Donald Trump and Jon Tester when it comes to travel plans. Jack, just quickly here, when you consider everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks and the impact that it could have down ballot, that comment from Joe Biden that he was a distraction is why he decided to leave the race. Was that Nancy Pelosi talking? Is that what she told him?
Pelosi clearly had a huge effect. Now, she has said she didn't directly tell him to get out of the race, but she made comments on national TV indicating that he still had a decision to make, even when he was at the time saying he was still in the race. Yeah. Even while the Senate is very tough, the House may be a stronger position for Democrats, and Pelosi had a significant hand in that.